On October 8, 2018, Hurricane Michael underwent a 48-hour rapid intensification period where it went from a Category 1 hurricane to a Category 4 hurricane. By landfall on October 10, 2018 at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, Hurricane Michael was an unprecedented for the region Category 5 hurricane, making landfall near Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida. Hurricane Michael was the strongest hurricane in recorded history to make landfall on the Florida Panhandle. Landing with sustained winds of 161 miles per hour and a minimum pressure of 919 millibars, the storm was the fourth most powerful hurricane to hit the United States, spreading devastation far inland through many counties in northwestern Florida, from Bay County, Gulf County, Calhoun County, even through Jackson County and Leon County, where the state capital is located. Hurricane Michael was unique in that it maintained its major hurricane status all the way through the Florida-Georgia state line. As it entered Seminole County, Georgia, it was still a strong Category 3 hurricane. Across northwestern Florida and into the state of Georgia, Hurricane Michael was responsible for $25 billion in damages. These are the 31 voices of Hurricane Michael, representing the many unique experiences and perspectives of the community members who endured the storm and its impacts. Voices of hope, empathy, pain, lessons learned, grit, determination, and extensive insight into one of the most catastrophic hurricane seasons the Florida Panhandle has ever encountered. I'm meteorologist Melissa Thomas, and allow me to introduce you to
Hello, I'm meteorologist Melissa Thomas, here with another one of the voices of the Hurricane Michael's Voice Project, Miss Kalani Nooney, who brings a very interesting perspective I don't think many of us have considered throughout the traumatic experience that was Hurricane Michael's landfall on October 10th, 2018. So we're coming up on the year anniversary. Let's dive into what Kalani has to share with the project today. By starting with, how was Panama City home to you pre-Hurricane Michael?
I was born and raised here in the mid to late 80s, peak of hurricane season. Also a Labor Day holiday baby as well.
Really?
I was born actually during Hurricane Elena that happened here. My parents actually were evacuated because it was one of those weird ones that would go this way, and then they were all clear, and then it would come back this way, and then they're like, they have to evacuate again. So way back in the day, they were sending people to Weewa to go evacuate. And when you think of Weewa, it's trees. So why would you evacuate to trees? But it's okay, it
That's
happens.
an interesting point that you bring up that I think we haven't talked about as of yet. And in regards to the nervousness of evacuating, why some people stall to evacuate is that very aspect right there of hurricane season and a storm approaching is that wiggle.
Because you don't really know, like, they call it the cone of uncertainty for a reason. And I kind of feel like, and it sounds cheesy, but since the day I was born, I feel like I'm the force to be reckoned with in a way. So I bring everything on. It's the running joke in my household. And that, because there's always been some sort of anomaly that's happened, no matter what I do. But seeing how we know how these things can be, we know how unpredictable they can be. I've seen them my whole entire life. I've lived here most of my life, except for the few times I've actually moved away. And it seems like every time I had come back to visit, there was always a storm coming. So I don't know how to take that, but it is what it is. We've stuck it out through every single one. My family, since I've been born, we've never evacuated. Actually, the place that my mom was in labor with me was a local organization, and there was no ambulances available at the time. So the fire chief at the time had come out with one of the fire trucks. So my running joke is that I got to ride in a fire truck when I was little and didn't even know it. So that's
awesome.
I like that. I kind of take that personal
Yeah.
too. So going from there, I went to all my schools here, obviously. All my jobs have been here.
You've really seen the town
Yeah,
grow.
I've
You've
seen it
the
change
personality
a
grow and
lot.
change. Yeah.
Even when I moved to Georgia for 5 years and I would travel for work and I would have to come back to this area, even watching something like the Hathaway Bridge changing, or something that was a big staple at the time was Miracle Strip closing. That I took personal as well. Or like how we had on the beach, the big King Neptune for so long when that went away. That it was right out there at the corner, right there by the Front Beach Walmart for the longest time.
I've been here since I was 11 years old, or 9 years old, so I don't remember that.
It's been a long time.
Wow.
Like, I don't remember a lot of things, but I
Yeah.
do remember that one.
That's awesome.
So like that, just there's so many memories. I think is my hard thing.
House probably coming in with.
It was a very big deal.
Yeah.
Like to come over the flyover for the first time of the Thomas Drive going over the bridge, getting to Hathaway Bridge. I still call it the Hathaway Bridge. It will still be the Hathaway Bridge to me. Don't care what they say. It's just not the same rickety one that I drove over for years.
Yeah.
So to see how the town has come along and grown and changed, it still in a way had a lot of the small town feel to it, which I think is why I've held on to it as long as I have. Mm-hmm. Yes, like everybody else, you leave and you come back. Yeah. People it has this stigma with it of it's the black hole. We hate having to come back home, whatever.
See, I moved away for studying and always thought I wanted to move away myself too. And you're right, that orbit though, you just get drawn back to home. It really is a beautiful area.
To me, it was kind of almost in a way like a catch-22. Like I left because I had gotten married for the first time and I figured Panama City, Atlanta had better opportunities, or around Atlanta had better opportunities than what I was always used to. So we got married here, but we moved back to where he was from in Atlanta and stayed there for years, and things changed and stuff happened and we lost our job, and I was like, I can't stay here and not do anything. Like, I'm going to go back home where I know people and I can make things happen and start over again. Yeah. Like, yes, be around my family. I have everybody else here. So even though a lot of us have grown up or have moved away or whatever, people are like, I remember you.
These are your roots.
You're like, this is where you are. Like, this is where you should come back home to anyway. So I had no problem with coming back home because it's home. Yeah. And I've always felt that way.
So hurricane season 2018 rolls around. That summer, how are you feeling? Are you thinking hurricanes? Are you prepared?
What did my dad always say? He always said, always expect the unexpected. So it's stuck with me even after all this time, even after he hasn't been here. And we knew with a couple of them coming through, even a couple of like the ones that really didn't do much of anything. We sat on the porch, we're like, hurricane, schmurricane, like there's nothing going on. Like, what is this?
There was that little mini event in May that was
the
like
subtropical
Yeah,
one?
It wasn't even quite a tropical storm. It was its own little entity in a sense, but had a little eye. And I watched that one come in myself as well. I've
never heard of a subtropical storm in over 30 years. But, there's first time for everything, right?
Yep.
This clearly proved it too. We knew something was going on, maybe woman's intuition, maybe mom's intuition, maybe just all the experience I've had over the years with all the hurricanes. But, nothing will really prepare you for what we went through, ever. I don't care what anybody says, but hindsight is always 20/20. So it's what you make it, or what you make of it, and what you take away from it. So the whole experience of it, okay, so we're going through the motions. We're, prepared, preparing ourselves as we're going through everything. But I don't think we're fully realizing everything. We're not fully taking in everything like we should because we're just in the motions of it all. So we're going to the store to get things and we see people, some people are frantic. Some people like us are like, dude, chill. It's okay. Like, you get some things too, whatever, and just kind of make your way through the crazy people that are about to have a meltdown and nothing's happened yet. Doing the normal stuff.
One of the most important things is to keep calm.
Yes.
Which is very, very hard to do. And one of the things that helps you keep calm is be as prepared as you can be. And
right.
I bet you a lot of the people that were having those meltdowns were, one, probably particularly vulnerable to
Yes.
being upset during a situation like that. And then also you had just the, oh my gosh, I have only so many hours to get this done and I haven't done it and now I'm racing the clock.
And now I have to. Now I have no choice. And now I'm pushing it to the last minute to try to get this or to get that or to get that. And I mean, I've been in the same boat before, not that long ago, doing the same thing. My husband, where he worked at the time, my current husband, I should say, different than the other one, thankfully.
Yay, yay for upgrades.
Lots of upgrades. I do that a lot. Not the husband's part, but the upgrade part. Anyway, where he worked at the time, he was responsible for doing the shutdown of the store, making sure stuff was barricaded and locked up properly and stuff like that at one of the home improvement stores here, and was there for years. So they trusted him to do that kind of stuff anyway. So while he was doing that, and my mom was at home with our daughter at the time to kind of keep her occupied because she was still 3, had just turned 3, so not in school or anything. I got off of work and I'm running around town. I'm like, okay, what do you need? Okay, this household needs this and this household needs that. Because we try to look after each other as much as possible, but there's people that we've kind of adopted into our family. So like that's my mom, or that's my extra aunt, or my grandmother because I don't have any grandparents living anymore, or something like that. Like I'm an only child, but I do have brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the stuff that's important to me, and making sure that they're okay and checked on, especially if they're elderly. You need water and stuff too. I'll be all right, but just like my kid, I'm going to take care of you before I take care of myself.
You're taking care of not only your family and household, but you've taken on the responsibility of looking out for all these other families and extended family members.
I'm that able-bodied person. I'm able to go out and run around like a chicken with my head cut off and go get stuff, so you don't have to. And that was my job. To be that prepared from the little one like that to going into this, there was a difference. More, I guess, of the chaos in a way and panic was with this one than it was with last year and dealing with that one. I kind of just took it as, okay, I remember, how to prepare for this stuff. Well, my store I work at, we have a bunch of windows all the way around us. And all I could think of is, okay, well, maybe we should put something over the windows, or, all these windows are going to go. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. Just, take the stuff off your desk. And, I was like, well, what about all these accessories on the wall and things like that? And they're like, no, just move them up a little bit. And I was like, you mean you don't want me to cover or move or nothing? Nothing?
Now that was for this season's hurricane potential threat that we faced with the different tracks of the hurricanes.
Different tracks. Didn't really know.
So you were trying to learn from last season.
Yes, last season altogether. Going through all of that and looking over everything, and we got to leave early enough in the day as we were kind of preparing for all of that stuff so we could leave and go prepare our own homes and how we needed to do. I would have felt more comfortable with boarding up my own house, but we rent and we weren't giving any instruction, so we didn't. The only thing I thought of, because I live in the Cove, is probably the only place around Panama City and Panama City Beach that I have not lived in all my years of being here. There and Lynn Haven technically, but I work in Lynn Haven, so it counts.
Yeah. Now you're talking about, as far as renting, was that this season or last season? You were struggling with the boundaries of what you can and can't do with a property that's not yours.
I've actually been renting for the last 4 years.
Okay.
Since
so
my
you were
daughter was
renting
born.
last year.
Yeah.
I think that's very important for the project and to consider for future, like just an analysis of a hurricane season in general, as far as preparation goes. Renters are in that limbo.
You don't really know what to do.
Kind of expound on that a little bit.
We knew from because we've been in this house for 3 years. We were actually in apartments in Callaway for a while before that, after my daughter was born. And then we moved out of there to this house because we found it was a little bit bigger and better than what we had before, and significantly cheaper. And we know our landlord, so that makes it even, I guess, a little bit better. I also know we're surrounded by a couple different bodies of water right here. And we know anytime we get some sort of rain shower, Beach Drive floods fairly decently. And I'm right around the corner from Beach Drive. So I'm not far from the marina. And I'm within walking distance, so I can see the fireworks every year. So it's kind of nice. Or if I wanted to, I could sit on top of the house and see them, I guess, but it's neither here nor there. But the idea behind it is we never really did anything for the hurricane season to prepare the house for it because we didn't really know what we could do or couldn't do. Other than, the typical, let's move the trash can, let's get the stuff off the porch, any kids' toys out the yard, things like that. Move stuff together and try to secure it as best as you can. The only thing we couldn't really secure was the nice swing set we had built for our daughter for her birthday. We lost that actually in the hurricane last year. So it's okay. We still got the seat for the swing. That's the only thing.
So for Hurricane Michael last year, where did you ride it out? Did you stay in town? Did you evacuate? Were you in this house you're renting? What were you able to do to batten down the hatches?
The hardest part was deciding that we could stay. We were going to stay. And I'm still okay with that to an extent. We all mutually decided to stay together as a family, all three families. So my mom, because she lives by herself now that my dad's gone, and my in-laws, and me, my husband, and our daughter, in my in-laws' house in Callaway, which is not where they live, is not far from Boat Race, which is also not far from Tyndall. So when I tell people I understand, trust me, I understand.
Did you see the eye wall?
Yes. Probably the most fascinating part of the storm to me, and being the storm that I am, I guess, I will always find these things fascinating. Maybe not as extreme as other people, but I will always find them fascinating and always want to learn more about them because of how I was brought into it. I mean, and I live here. I live in an area where it's common. It's going to happen. We know as soon as anything gets in that Gulf, there's no chance it's going to do what it wants to. I always said as soon as it sticks its toe in that warm Gulf water, there's no telling. So to go there, to be with family, made it a lot easier. I actually wanted to go a day sooner than what we did. We left work early Monday. We went over to my family's house Wednesday morning, if I remember right. Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, something like that. But I wanted to go sooner. Before we went, my husband actually took the responsibility of going to his parents' house to help board everything up. Our parents are getting older, obviously because we're getting older, so they can't do everything themselves anymore. Or they can, they just need a little extra hand. And they've been in that house as long as they've been stationed here, many moons ago, so early 90s, if I remember right. So it's home for them too. Once you've been here long enough, you're pretty much a local.
Yep.
You know front, middle, and back beach, and that's what they will forever be called.
Yes.
98 or 15th Street,
And all the different speed limits on back beach.
Yes.
When the officer tells you, it's always been this. No, it has not.
No, it
sir.
has not. Try again. Like the whole going over there, he dealt with that. To sit with everybody all together definitely made it a big difference. But also, I wasn't the only one who couldn't prepare their own house. My mom also rents. I asked her, I was like, is there anything else you need us to do? My job had extra sandbags from previous hurricane season. So after we loaded up both front and back door with sandbags at work, I brought some sandbags home just to be on the safe side. Now, there's a house, our house sits up a little bit higher than the house directly behind us that also rents from the same person. Whereas the waters came rushing through and she had tons of water in her house. We did not. So I technically didn't even need the sandbags. But they also got stolen later on down the way. So I don't know. The only thing they took off my porch was sandbags. And I still don't know where they went. But it's okay. I just random I know, but that's my life.
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up. There was, with all the good that we got to experience with mankind, kindness and heroism, there was dark side.
There was
to
a lot of
disaster
darkness.
situation.
And I was like, the cove is so warm and friendly and usually kind of, I don't know, in a way, kind of like a good mix of retirement people or people still, just professionals, things like that. Oh, where did that come from? I mean, I see stuff all the time, even after the storm and stuff like that too, of the vandalism or the squatters and things like that. And I'm like, this is happening. What street is this on? This is right around the corner from where I am. And I was like, okay. Barricading my in-laws' house was one thing. And I think only one thing actually failed us with that.
So how was riding the storm out? On that note and preparation, you said one thing may have failed, so.
It was
what was the...
interesting. So everybody else experienced ears popping. I did not. Yeah. Could have been because I'm a worrywart and I chew gum.
Interesting too that you didn't, and probably maybe chewing gum helped. I think it's important to note that where you rode the storm out in Callaway, there's a portion of the eye wall that went over Callaway, so that you were ground zero. And did you experience the brief calm of the eye going over? Or?
It was super brief, probably briefer than, if that's even a real word, probably even more brief than any of the storms I think I've ever been through. And growing up, I remember, I believe it was Opal at the house I grew up in, which is no more now, standing outside with my dad on the front porch, holding on to the railings, kind of like looking around and seeing everything and hearing my mom scream at me and tell me to get back inside and whatever. But you're fascinated by this kind of stuff. And you want to see, you want to know, you have that reverential fear. You respect it for what it is. You know it happens, but the only way you're going to know to prepare and deal with it is pretty much by being in it and kind of dealing with it and kind of seeing how things go. That's the only way you're going to move on. Because we had 2 dogs, one of who was actually ailing on his deathbed and passed away some weeks after the storm. That was hard. And to take both of them outside, like, okay, we've got X amount of time, let's go. So my mom stayed inside with our daughter, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law went outside. My husband came outside too. He's retired Navy, so he went outside, jacket on in tow and everything, kind of like looking around for a minute. My responsibility was kind of like most people, doing what you're not supposed to do, and going outside anyway and kind of tracking everything and seeing how stuff was going, which I'm glad I did because that actually helped with a lot of insurance claims later on down the road. So, including my own vehicle that is now finally going to get repaired next week.
A year after.
A year after. And it was supposed to be longer. There was nothing recent that could come up that could take care of it. Nowhere in town was able to be open. Nowhere in town was able to take it. And it's not just me, even in talking with other people all the time. Even as of yesterday, I was doing something for my mom for her vehicle, which I'm about to use because mine's about to be in the shop. The lady told me that the place I normally go to anyway, because I love them, weren't available to take anybody in until January. The only reason I got really lucky with where I'm taking it, because of my insurance claim anyway, I have to take it there, is because I know somebody who works in the body shop. And he's like, just see what you can do. You can name drop. I don't know if it's going to help, but I've been here for years. You can try.
Now, this is due to the limited access to shops in town.
Shops in town and shops out of town.
And the waiting lists involved.
Yes.
Oh, my.
Even people I know that they were getting, like the first responder people that I know that worked at the police station or something, were taking their cars all the way up to Dothan or Fort Walton, Pensacola, which is actually where I bought both of my vehicles I've had recently over the last couple of years, including this one, which I had only had for 5 months prior to the storm. And it got enough damage on it. I mean, it's drivable, it's fine, but it got enough damage on it where it's a very real possibility it could be a total loss. And I would be upside down on a vehicle because of how I had to get it in the first place, because of somebody else. But.
And it's taking this long of the process through recovery and coming up on the year anniversary to get this all sorted out. So it's not a quick process at all.
None of it. It was supposed to be, she told me it could be maybe like late December and they could get me in. And I was like, look, I know you hear this all day long. I'm not going to be one of those extra people who's just trying to throw something at you. I work full time. I am a mom to a toddler who is going to school, because at the time when I was talking to her about it, she had just started school. My husband was going to school for a while, and now he's working back full-time again. We were going to be down to one vehicle. Didn't know how I was going to make it back and forth from the Cove to Lynn Haven every day, but I'll figure it out. I'm paying on this vehicle still, and I need to know if you guys are going to think it's a total loss or not a total loss. I don't want to pay extra money a month for a car payment if the vehicle's going to be a total loss in a couple months. What's the point? If you can just tell me so I can move on.
So the storm, the eye moves over, and you go through the second half of it. As you're emerging, how did your home fare? Are you able to live in it after the storm, immediately out the gate?
When we looked a couple times, both before the eye and after the eye, like we're kind of like peered out a little here or there. Kind of got some footage of that too. After the eye moved over, it ripped off, well, I say sucked off one of the board paneling pieces off of the indention of their front porch where we were. And it wasn't until much later that I realized how strong it was to do this, because they had a hefty fence. And when that paneling came off, had the front part of that fence, the gate piece, it was super heavy because I tried to, Hulk lift it and move it myself afterwards because I was mad it didn't work. Had it not landed where it did, it bowed out enough where it was hitting up against that wood piece of that fence. But there was enough suction right there because of the way the indent is that we had to run and go get the mattress out of my husband's room where we were sleeping and go put it up against there and hold it. And I've never had to do that in my life. But as calm as we did that, we were able to keep everybody kind of chilled, and dogs and stuff included and everything. And somehow everybody was okay. And we didn't hear, where we were in the living room, the patio door is just up this way, and there's a fireplace here. So we heard some stuff going through the flume and everything as far as that goes. There's a massive tree that was just outside of their patio that was one of the ones that bent, twist, and snapped over. We didn't hear it at all. Now I know they barricaded everything, but it wouldn't have been that soundproof. But the fact that we didn't hear it at all, now had the wind of after the eye been in the opposite direction like it was in the first place, that tree would have landed smack where we were, and it didn't. So, the damages of the house itself, since I have all three houses to really worry about, theirs wasn't much of anything. There was fence gone, random stuff in the yard, like her plants and things that she does because she works for the Conservancy, Bay County Conservancy.
Okay.
So she's got a lot of the nature stuff and everything going on. All that stuff was pretty much scrambled like eggs everywhere. And there was a tree when we had first gone out to look after in the eye. There was a tree that was a notch right there on the edge of the garage, and you could just see it just wedging itself up against it. Had it kept going, it would have crushed the garage, excuse me, where my cat was. And it did not, thankfully. It went this way into the neighbor's yard. I think the thing that had the most damage out of all of that stuff was probably my mom's, even though you couldn't really tell. Now, we were in Callaway for the storm. My mom has been living in Springfield area, like right on the outskirts of Springfield Parker, for about 7-8 years now. And she's like right next door to her job, so she can literally walk out her back door and go to work every day. And her columns, it looked like Bruce Lee karate chopped her columns out. They were gone. Their trees obviously were uprooted, and there was several of them that were close to the house that literally went back porch, notch, front porch, notch, but nothing straight through the house. When you walked into the house, which we had to, nothing moved. Nothing was shifted. There was nothing wrong whatsoever. You couldn't tell anything happened. It was very weird. We actually we kind of did some damage to our house. So we were on duty, me and my husband being the youngest able-bodied people in a big SUV that felt like a tank, could do anything, right? Moseying on through the neighborhood, trying to do what we could do. And we get to my mom's house, And I was recording, and I stopped recording because I lost my mind. Because all I could see at that time at that stoplight was part of the shop where she works was gone. And I know how hard they worked for that. Family, friends, and he's been in business my whole life. So to see that and couldn't really see much of where my mom's house was, I had lost it. Because she's got 2 outside cats that she's had for years. And I knew she left her inside cat there because she didn't know if she could bring it or not. So we went over there, and my husband punched out the back window for kitchen door so we could get in, because, who thinks after a storm you can bring your house keys, right? And that they would be there and you could just use, like there might not be a house to use a key, so what did I think? To rescue the cat was probably the I guess highlight, of that whole thing, because I could bring her back, and it's just like a baby to her, because she's old enough, the little old cat, and everything. So I'm carrying her and bringing her inside of my mom, and just watched my mom trying to keep it together, but losing her mind because she's holding my child at the same time, who still doesn't know what's fully going on, and trying to keep the cat away from the dogs too. But to have hers, mine, ours over here didn't really have a whole lot of damage. Some stuff here or there. Something we thought it was funny was we thought the mailboxes that had issues would be gone, and they were still intact.
Of course.
I was like, I want a new mailbox. It's fine. The trash I had thought would weigh down the trash can. It didn't weigh down the trash can. The trash was over here, though, still intact and still inside the bag and everything. The trash can was all the way over here. We obviously lost the swing set that we had built for her.
Isn't it interesting what the wind chooses to touch and what the wind does not touch?
It chooses what it wanted to.
It's leaving a trash bag, but it's blowing the trash can the other direction.
And I was like, and all the trash was still inside the trash bag. I didn't think I tied the trash bag that bad, but hefty, I guess. I don't really know what to tell you, but now more so we're seeing more damage with our house than what we did before. And
that makes sense.
Even with me being at my mom's yesterday, I was seeing the same thing with her cabinets. You can see where everything shifted. You can see cracks and stuff here or there. But even like the cabinets coming off the walls.
Starting to settle.
You're starting to settle more. Our floor is like a little roller coaster everywhere. Now it's never fully been level because it's an older house. But now it's ridges everywhere.
So what I really want to get into for just a moment and pivot to this, as far as going back to work. You work at a very interesting place to have worked for during a time like this, and the perspective that you're bringing to the project is invaluable with this. And I will let you say where you work, and whoever's watching this will immediately go, oh man. So first, before we even get into it,
I'm all for comments too, so I can't wait to hear all of the comments. So
before we get into it, I want to thank you for going back to work and probably working as hard as you did. How soon did you get back to work, and where did you work?
So in January of last year, I actually made a big change. I left something I was more comfortable with. Before I even started with that one, I worked at cell phones before. I have been working with cell phones for almost 6 years now. I started off with a job for most of that, and I left the comfortability of it before that job, I hadn't worked with cell phones before, other than normal technology. Parents get it, figure it out, show me kind of thing. I left what I knew and went to something that wasn't completely different, but there was a lot of different aspects of it. And I started working with an independent Verizon retail store. We are TCC. We are technically, if you want to be super technical about it, the largest small retailer of Verizon.
Now, for the people that don't know, what does TCC stand for?
The cellular connection. So being the largest small one, there's a lot of community that's involved within it too. There are many events that they hold throughout the year, each quarter, where they give back something to the community. There's different venues and different aspects of it where you can give back, even if it's like donating an old phone and it gets shipped out to like the battered women's shelter, things like that. We take part in a lot of that stuff every day. That's a lot of stuff that people don't see from behind the scenes. And that's, to be honest, there's a lot of us that still don't even really talk about that just because we're so involved in it more. The one that is probably the biggest to me every year since I've been with them, this is the second year I've done it, is the backpack giveaway, always before school. The most important one to me because not only do I have a kid of my own, this is my hometown. So anything I can do to give back is the number one thing I always want to do. I always strive for that.
Yes.
Giving, whether it's bugging the crap out of people to give stuff, anything that you want to do to help with that, I've always been on top of that all the time. So I take great pride in that. And most people that know me, friends and stuff too especially, will tell you how meticulous I can be with my work, how it bugs me to no end. I'm sure you can relate. When something doesn't function properly, you will do everything you can to try to make sure it works. And my goal at the end of the day, no matter what you buy or don't buy from me, is I want to make sure you understand what you're doing so you can take away something from it, like, and feel a little bit more empowered, a little more inspired to kind of learn about it on your own a little bit. So, I mean, I work for Verizon, but I don't work for corporate Verizon.
Yes.
So there's a big difference between the two.
Very big difference.
Yes.
And for those watching that may not have been familiar, and for many of us that went through it are very familiar, right out the gate, a lot of cellular companies, the storm was so massive and so destructive to a lot of utilities and the infrastructure that is cellular networks. Verizon went down for a few weeks, and Verizon caught a lot of heat for that. And to be honest, before speaking with Miss Kalani today, I saw Verizon as this big corporate entity, this just massive, no-face being involved in all of this drama, that it completely escaped me that we do have local branches, their own separate entity and franchise, that there are Verizon representatives that were working amongst this situation. And so I have to ask, I mean, what was that like going back to work, knowing that you have a lot of frustrated individuals that may not understand what was happening, just that they couldn't get contact during this time, just like you couldn't get contact.
I couldn't either.
Yeah.
I joke around all the time. I have, the screensavers of stuff on my tablet and papers everywhere that show, yes, it's the big Verizon roller coaster, the big bent tower. I was by that big bent tower during the storm. Like, I wasn't far from that tower. So if people want to know a generalized location of where I was, that kind of gives you an idea. To be one of those people, I take care of my phones and stuff too, but none of us in that household, and 4 out of 5 adults in that household, had Verizon service. Decent phones too, so there was no reason why it shouldn't have been an issue. My mom still had a prepaid carrier, was Sprint, and so she had Boost Mobile, which is where I used to work before, and she also didn't have service. And I took that to heart as well. There wasn't much we could do for that one. Mind you, going into that storm, I hadn't quite celebrated my 10 months with Verizon service or as a Verizon employee. So going into that, I knew of cellular stuff and how it worked probably a little bit better than most people do, like the average consumer who just plays with their phone every day. But I never fully knew everything until after this. So a lot of it is growth and learning and things like that too.
So you learned a lot.
I learned a lot after this. And I hope more people did too and can see it a little bit differently than I did. I mean, yes, it was my job. Even till this day, talking with people, we still talk about this every day. And I don't care if you're with me for an hour and a half, if it makes you feel better after the end of the conversation and you feel a little bit better knowing I was there with you. They didn't just send me down here to come help. We were actually here during the storm. A lot of us lost everything, if not close to everything in this storm, and we still wanted to come back to work to try to come help, to show you we're still here, bring you whatever supplies we could bring you.
You're
doing
a
that kind of stuff.
Employee, going back to work, taking the brunt of the frustration of community members that no doubt brought it to your front door, being the face of the company, and going through it yourself, riding the storm out yourself, being a local, living here, watching your family suffer through it, having to go through recovery yourself, and at the same time representing a company that struggled as much as it did post-storm and having to bear that brunt in person
every day
while you're trying to recover.
Every day. It was a good couple of weeks before we got back into our area for the store. We were outside working in a tent for a while in Lynn Haven floods. So
you were working in a tent?
We were working in a tent beside the building until it was somewhat safe enough for us to go back inside. And I say somewhat because we were still in there as they're remodeling stuff. So we're like shifting customers around as they're pulling up carpet and laying back down carpet. I was out in a tent. They had shuffled us a lot around to relocate us for stores here or there. But I personally fought a lot with having issues with fighting curfew. So what little communication we had, when I could get it, you'd tell me this little bit of information. And this little bit of information wasn't enough for me to pick up and leave my family, grab all of us, even if I could, and go out basically into the unknown and hope I make it out by curfew. We were up with the sun and down with the sun. I've never had to do that before. I don't recall from being little on up if I've ever had to be around a curfew. Now, I've asked my mom about it since then, since she's been here since before I was born, since she moved here. And I think she said that there might have been one at some point, but it wasn't this extreme. I'm glad it was. You got to see a lot of colors of things. Like, it looks really pretty during the day, even with all the devastation. And then nighttime falls and things get real really quick. And you have to be really hyper-focused. So you could be extremely tired from all the strenuous work you just did all day, or in my case, driving from Callaway to Chipley, which should not take that long because that's where I was sent to go work. And then coming home, trying to leave there, planning it, coming home by curfew time. There's no lights anywhere. You're just hoping you can navigate around, and you know from being here you can take this street or this street or this street to get where you need to go, but you don't know if that street's still blocked or not, and you're trying to go through the motions. And if you're ever coming through and you could ever see anything like that, and I don't know if I could paint this picture any clearer, but to have some cell phone service, to talk on the phone part of the way until I got home, hair raising everywhere as I'm driving through part of Lynn Haven, coming from Southport, heading towards home at the time, and seeing things around me and how eerie it felt. That this is something I see every day that we probably take for granted, just, oh, that's there, or that's there, or that's there. The no lights, you don't know what's lurking around the corner. And it could have been more perfect for Halloween season, I guess, to put it on a bright side. But which I joked about a lot too, because I actually have a picture of a pumpkin that was destroyed from the storm from my in-laws' house that was shoved over there in the corner. To see all of that, to come around the corner, to go by things that I see every day, including the one and only house that I grew up in, that I thought was in good enough condition to be standing, and it wasn't. I got told that and lost it. To drive by that and just white knuckle driving as if I was driving through the storm itself. That's exactly how it felt. To keep going back and forth to work, to finally get to work back inside my store, to hear the stuff every day from people. And yes, I know you're upset. Don't you think I was too? And I can't tell you how much I actually told people every day, I was here. I was here with you. So is this person. So is this person. So is this person. This person over here lost everything. Everything. And they were sleeping in their car. Him and his wife. We didn't know that until later on, but we found that out. To this person who lived right around the corner from our store. We didn't have too terribly much damage, but he still had enough damage. He was the only person that was extra going around trying to make sure that all of us were okay. When I could get cell phone service, I would get random butt dial calls from him often. And that's all I was doing was like, hello, can you reach out to everybody else? Can you hear me? I'm okay. Like, just one of those things. Anytime we got something, all I wanted to do was just to be able to let people know we are okay and we are here for you. Believe it or not, no matter what everybody says for you, not everybody is that whole big corporate mindset, and that's all we do. Yes, at the end of the day, we're supposed to set these goals and meet these goals and sales expectations and things like that. But I think that's what sets our store apart more so than, say, corporate stores in general, is because we kind of feel like we're the mom and pop store, if you will. You come in, it's cozy. Granted, I really don't want you to have to be in there all day, but things happen. I get it. We set that expectation for people. And knowing right off the bat the attitudes that people had. I mean, me driving around the city, my city, seeing signs like die, Verizon, die. I'll never forget that as long as I live. To not being able to have communication with people. To work for a company that people hated, still hate for the most part. And I do it to myself every time. I see the comments people post and I read them and I still take it to heart and I always will. It's something that not everybody will fully understand this side. And I hope that maybe I might have shed some sort of light on it, that we're all human. And for the most part, we all went through it together. And I don't know what was more disappointing, the fact that I couldn't get anything with the company I worked for or the company I used to work for. Because either one, we were kind of screwed. Yeah. Like, I didn't really know what to do. It took some doing, but by going through what we went through in a positive way, we are getting things that we weren't technically supposed to see in this itty bitty little town. Yeah. No matter how much it grows up, we weren't supposed to see half the things we saw.
Yeah. Silver linings, as I like to bring into the project. Yep. Every destruction,
there's always something. The beautiful sunsets we've seen since then. I have never seen the stars in the city the way that I've seen them since the storm. When I used to live up in Bayou George for a while, I saw beautiful stars every night. Now I live downtown and I see beautiful stars every night without having to try, without having to get out of the telescope and everything. To see the way things have come about with, okay, yes, this happened. Well, I don't think people fully understand what happened. So when you cover a major area, or like say a major viewing area, obviously the main hub for that has got to be somewhere centrally located. And you think about as massive, big doesn't even describe it, as massive as the storm was, there's no way in hell that it could not have missed wherever that central hub is. And if that central hub is closer to, don't quote me, but I think closer to the main military base, which would make sense as to why that's the only service they could have right there that would actually work. And if that switch is broken, then nobody's gonna have anything. And as far as why did other people have this and this worked and that worked, whatever, you also have to think their main stuff is across the bridge, where it's a whole different world. So that also explains why when you have this and you cross over to all the way over here to maybe Bufu or not Bufu,
that signal starts to
drop.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind everything.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter who you had. Now, everybody knows, especially if you watch storms and things, it could have shifted just a little bit this way or a little bit this way.
It would have been that carrier.
And it would have been that one. It could have happened to anybody.
Yeah.
But it happened to us. It happened to us as a community. It happened to us as a cell phone carrier. It happened to us as a hometown, as the people. you deal with it.
Well, it sounds like you did the best you could and beyond. So, you're still working?
Still working for Verizon.
So how's the year been leading up to the year anniversary? How are you faring with your recovery? What are your hopes for the future?
It's a hard one. Being my husband was in school. He was in the police academy, and his classroom and whole campus area was a designated EOC, so up 77. So he didn't really have school. I already talked about what my mother-in-law did and what my mom did, and then there was me and my father-in-law. So me and my father-in-law were the only ones that were able to work. He works for a local popular supermarket, and once they were finally able to get him back in, he was working all the time, and he's supposed to be retired. So here he is pushing almost like a 60-hour week, and not the greatest knees and things anymore. So it got harder to pick up and carry on. Some of us obviously got to work a little bit sooner than others. Thankfully we have jobs that we can go back to, no matter how hated or not hated they are. We still have something to carry on from that and pick up the pieces as far as that part goes has been interesting. My husband decided to not continue with the rest of the school anymore. Other priorities took precedent. And even though we're all trying to pick up pieces and figure out what we want to do and things like that, this is my home. This is where I want to be. I kind of feel in a way I owe it to my dad to show him how, even though we have our weak moments, how strong I can be and make him proud of what we just did. If he was here now, I know he would probably be thinking how I'll refrain from using what he says all the time. He would make some colorful comments about awesome the storm looks and how it's been, whoa, this is so cool, babe, and can you imagine this and all this other stuff, and then to see everything destroyed, just flatlined, especially the house, that would break him to see all that. But to know that he's always with me. And if I didn't know that before, I know that when I look at my little girl every day. She's my twin, but I look just like him. So, to make her see also what we went through, she'll have no idea. All she knows is, I struggled with trying to prepare her. How do you prepare a 3-year-old for what may or may not happen? Is kind of hard. I don't wish that on anybody, especially a 3-year-old who's potty training. We're in the middle of potty training.
I cannot imagine.
That is really, really rough as far as that goes. To see everything, to bring it all together in fruition, which is why this is so important to me. Because I want her to have something to look back on and see what happened and see, what did my mom do? Oh my God, that's a very big deal to know that you can do anything you set your mind to. And it's all in how you take it and how you deal with it. And I can guarantee you, if, as much as I've been through, and I've said it before, if my husband wasn't here and he was still overseas in Japan, I wouldn't have stayed. Like, I love you, Mom, but I wouldn't have stayed. I kept saying I was going to haul all the way up to Wisconsin to go see my family. I was going to do anything at that point. At the end of the day, it's my child. And it doesn't matter if you're either with me or you're against me. And I have her to take care of and worry about. She did better, I think, than the rest of us. No. She didn't know anything from nothing. She just knew we were at Nana's house, and she's fine coloring next to the lantern or playing with blocks.
With a Category 5
With a Category 5 hurricane.
Over her head. That's awesome.
She
sounds resilient.
Watch her run around, playing, not knowing anything going on. She didn't know why I sat her on top of that bent tree to take a picture, because Mommy has one similar. To do a lot of that stuff, Panama City is home, Panama City is family. And anybody who knows me knows I have a very strong tie to my family. What few family I still talk to, whether you are blood family or not blood family, it's never mattered. They run together after a while.
Well, I think with community members such as yourself that had strong roots in the community to begin with, even stronger now, raising your daughter in recovery mode and what she's getting to witness a town rebuild itself, I think Panama City's in good hands.
I mean, it's going to be hard for her to see that. It's going to take a long time. I mean, it's already hard for me to imagine, but she's going to grow up and see something that she's probably not even going to know the difference.
She's going to see a different Panama City than you saw.
Definitely, because I've seen it twice now, technically.
But with your help and her help, I believe Panama City can come back stronger and better. And it's going to take voices such as yourself and people such as you to get us there. So I'm glad you're sticking around, and I'm glad home has you.
I'm a firm believer in writing things out, as cliche as that is, as much as possible. You don't know until you try.
Well, we really appreciate you coming out and sharing some insight, some such unique insight for this project. I'm, like I said, blown away. I'm really trying not to scream right now. But thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you. It means more to me than I think I could ever fully express to anyone. It really means a lot to me because there's a lot of people who don't get to speak ever. And I don't want to be the one who just pushes other people to the wayside. But I want to let you know that there's so many people out here who want to speak, who are basically internally screaming because they don't know how to speak.
And I think you have a very eloquent way of representing probably many people that can't. So I'm really glad you came out today.
Thank you.